Welcome, fishy fiction fanatics, to a story that blurs the lines between reality and the deepest, darkest corners of the spotlight. Tonight, we're diving into a narrative so explosive, so emotionally charged, that it could only live here, in the world of compelling fiction. Forget everything you think you know about global superstars, government influence, and the sacred bond of marriage. Because the story we're about to tell, the story of how BTS's marriage became a government order, is a narrative woven with ambition, sacrifice, and a contract that was never meant to see the light of day. This is the fiction we're here for, the kind that makes you question everything. Get comfortable. This is a long dive. Our story begins not with confetti and awards, but in the sterile, high-security hallways of the Blue House, South Korea's presidential executive office and residence. It's late 2024. The world knows BTS is on hiatus, members pursuing solo activities, but behind the scenes, the seven men are trapped in a geopolitical storm they never saw coming. The government, under immense pressure, both domestic and international, is calculating the true economic and cultural value of BTS. It's more than just music, they are a geopolitical asset, a soft power weapon worth more than a dozen aircraft carriers. The global perception of South Korea, its tourism, its exports, its entire modern image, hinges on the group's continued stability and positive influence. But there is a problem: scandal. Not just the usual celebrity rumor mill gossip, but a looming threat of real, damaging controversy that could fracture the band's carefully constructed image of perfection and, by extension, destabilize South Korea's cultural economy. The individual members are nearing their 30s. The media is relentless with questions about their personal lives, their dating, their future. The pressure to conform to an impossible standard of availability and purity is cracking them. A single mistake by any member, a leaked photograph, a public relationship, anything deemed distracting, could trigger a catastrophic global backlash. The government sees the risk as unacceptable. This is where the Minister of Culture, a stern, calculating woman named Madam Choi, enters the picture. Madam Choi is not a fan, she is a pragmatist. She views the members of BTS as the crown jewels of the Republic, and like any valuable asset, they must be perfectly secured. Her solution: controlled stability. And the ultimate form of controlled stability, in a public-facing entity, is a managed, politically neutral marriage. A marriage that eliminates the risk of scandalous, external relationships, provides a perfect, comforting narrative of family and commitment to the global fan base, and, most importantly, keeps the assets entirely in-house. The government's plan is audacious, chilling, and completely secret: arrange a marriage between two members of BTS. It must be believable, palatable to the masses, and serve the government's strategic objectives. Not a genuine, romantic union, but a contractual partnership. A geopolitical arrangement disguised as a fairy tale. The target members are chosen based on a cold, clinical analysis of their public personas, their existing chemistry, and the potential impact on brand stability. The final, terrifying conclusion points to Jimin and Jungkook. The pairing is globally known, often shipped by fans, and provides a powerful, emotional narrative that could withstand intense scrutiny. Their bond is already accepted as extraordinary, transforming it into a marital bond would be seen not as a shock, but as a destined culmination. The setting for the negotiation is a sterile, soundproof room, miles away from their agency's headquarters. The seven men are brought in individually. RM, the leader, is the first to be presented with the terrifying truth. He's shown the numbers, the projected loss in GDP, the potential collapse of secondary industries, the decline in national morale if the group falters. He's told, in no uncertain terms, that this is not a request. It is a national security mandate cloaked in a pop culture headline. His hands are tied. He is forced to become the reluctant executioner, the man who has to present this catastrophic choice to his brothers. He argues, he fights, he screams internally, but the threat is clear: cooperation ensures the safety and stability of all seven members and their families. refusal means they all fall, and the backlash will be merciless. The moment Jungkook and Jimin are told is the emotional core of this fictional nightmare. They are best friends, soulmates in a platonic sense, bound by over a decade of shared sacrifice and an unspoken, profound understanding. To be told they must now stage a life, a marriage, a love they don't possess, for the sake of the country and their friends, is devastating. Jungkook, the youngest, feels the weight of betrayal, the complete loss of his private self. He sees his entire future being scripted, his first marriage, his only marriage, becoming a lie. Jimin, the gentle heart, feels the crushing weight of responsibility, recognizing that his public image has been weaponized. He is forced to look at his closest friend and realize their bond is now being used as a strategic tool by a government that cares nothing for their personal happiness. The contract itself is a masterpiece of legal and emotional manipulation. The document, which we, in the realm of fishy fiction, are calling the White Paper Covenant, is over 100 pages long. It dictates every aspect of their fabricated life. It stipulates a minimum duration of 7 years for the marriage, aligning perfectly with the remaining contract terms of the group's next phase. It includes clauses on public displays of affection, PDAs, mandatory hand-holding, strategic glances, pre-approved statements of devotion, and a minimum number of joint public appearances per quarter. There is a terrifying fidelity to the narrative clause. If either party is found to be pursuing a genuine, external romantic relationship that risks exposure, the financial and reputational penalties would be crippling, designed to ensure self-policing. The contract even outlines the requirements for their official residence, a carefully curated, heavily secured home meant only for public consumption and occasional, mandatory joint appearances, while in reality, they would maintain separate living spaces, separated by an impenetrable wall of mutual, desperate silence. The hardest provision, the one that broke their spirits, was the heir apparent clause. It wasn't mandatory, but strongly advised. The government saw a child as the ultimate stabilizer, the absolute proof of a solid, committed union. The contract gently suggested they should actively pursue the establishment of a family unit within the first 3 years. This was the moment they both realized the full horror. Their bodies, their emotions, their very ability to procreate were no longer their own, but assets of the state. The remaining 5 members, RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, and V, are trapped in their own layers of complicity and despair. RM takes on the role of the silent guardian, his leadership becoming a painful administrative function, managing the lie and protecting his members' sanity. Jin becomes the master of public cheer, using his natural brightness to deflect questions and overcompensate for the inherent tension, his jokes masking a deep sorrow. Suga, the realist, retreats, channeling his pain into even sharper, more cynical lyrics, creating the soundtrack of their beautiful prison, his music becoming the only honest expression left. J-Hope, the emotional anchor, focuses all his energy on maintaining morale, offering small, private moments of comfort, a silent promise to keep the group intact until the contract expires. And V, the observer, sees the entire world through a lens of profound existential sadness, understanding that their success has cost them their freedom, viewing the contract marriage as the absolute end of their private youth. The logistics of the proposal are a performance worthy of an Oscar. It has to be authentic, spontaneous, and utterly captivating. The government uses a highly publicized award show after-party. A carefully planted photographer captures a moment of intense, private conversation. The narrative is released, an emotional, impulsive proposal born from years of deeply felt, suppressed love. The ring, a simple, elegant band designed to look like a personal choice, is actually selected by a government-approved jeweler. The official announcement is made hours later, a meticulously crafted statement released by their agency that speaks of destiny, a love that transcended friendship, and the comfort of finding a partner in the chaos of fame. The global reaction is, predictably, a tidal wave of ecstatic support. The fanbase erupts in joyful validation. The media narrative is one of love triumphs, a beautiful, romantic ending to years of speculation. Tourists flock to South Korea, the stock value of their agency soars to historic highs, and Madam Choi, the Minister of Culture, quietly congratulates herself. The government has achieved perfect stability through perfectly crafted fiction. But for Jungkook and Jimin, the reality of the contractual engagement is an unbearable torture. They find themselves forced into joint photo shoots, the camera flash is a constant reminder of the performance. They must hold hands in public, the touch feeling cold and foreign, a prop for the world. They find themselves constantly inventing anecdotes, creating a fictional history for their fictional romance. Their private conversations are monitored, their every movement logged and analyzed for any sign of deviation from the prescribed narrative. The ultimate test comes in the days leading up to the staged wedding. The event is a state affair, a cultural event broadcast live across the globe. It is held in a historic venue, meticulously designed to look like a personal, intimate choice, but guarded like a fortress. The vows they exchange are not their own, but poetic lines approved by the ministry, promising loyalty and devotion to the public image of their union. As they stand before the world, the flashbulbs blinding, the cheers deafening, they exchange a look of profound, shared misery. It is the moment they officially sacrifice their individual lives for the collective good of their nation. In the final, private moment before the kiss, Jimin whispers to Jungkook, "I'm sorry," and Jungkook replies, "Me too. Let's survive this." The years that follow are a blur of forced intimacy and crushing isolation. They live parallel, adjacent lives. Their separate rooms in the official residence are their sanctuaries, the only places they can shed the personas and breathe. They communicate in the clipped, professional language of co-workers discussing their next project. Their genuine, platonic affection is slowly strangled by the constant demand for romantic proof. They are two ships, once sailing side by side, now trapped in the same vessel, unable to touch or connect genuinely, navigating a sea of lies. Then, 3 years into the contract, the leak happens. A young, fiercely principled intern working in the Ministry of Culture's archival department stumbles upon the white paper covenant. They are horrified by the cold, calculated manipulation of human lives. Driven by a moral imperative, they risk everything and transfer the entire 100-page document to an encrypted server, anonymously contacting a small, independent investigative journalism team based in London, a team outside the direct sphere of South Korean influence. The moment the first page is published online, a redacted, but undeniable portion of the fidelity to the narrative clause, the fictional world of BTS's marriage begins to collapse. The headline is simple, brutal, and world-shattering. BTS marriage was a government order, the contract that just leaked. The fallout is immediate, biblical in scale. The internet breaks. Fans, initially heartbroken, turn to righteous fury, feeling a deep, personal betrayal. The stock market plummets. Madam Choi resigns in a public scandal, but the government scrambles, denying the authenticity of the document, calling it a sophisticated hoax orchestrated by foreign entities seeking to destabilize South Korea. In the midst of the chaos, the 7 members finally find a moment of true, unsanctioned freedom. They gather in their old, unofficial practice room, the only place that feels real. RM lays the full, unredacted contract on the floor. For the first time in 3 years, the truth is public. The question is no longer if the marriage is real, but what they do now. Jimin and Jungkook, looking at the contract, finally see not the lie, but the shared sacrifice. The lie, paradoxically, created a new kind of bond, the unbreakable fellowship of 2 people who chose to sacrifice their own happiness for the people they loved the most, their 5 bandmates. RM speaks, his voice thick with years of guilt. The contract is out. The government has lost its leverage. We are finally, truly, free to tell the truth. To walk away. But Jungkook looks at Jimin, and Jimin looks back at Jungkook. They have been acting as a couple for so long, enduring the lie for each other, that the public narrative has warped their reality. They know that walking away now, exposing the full extent of the conspiracy, will destroy the band, the legacy, and the cultural soft power they were forced to create. It will be seen as an admission of their compliance, not their victimhood. And so, in the most devastating moment of their lives, they make the ultimate, final choice, a choice that transcends the government contract. They choose the fiction. They decide to keep the lie alive, not for the government, but for the army, for their own peace, and for the preservation of the 7 men who built an empire on shared dreams. They will not allow the political machine to destroy what they created with blood, sweat, and tears. Jimin gently touches Jungkook's hand, a genuine, unforced gesture this time, a gesture of comradeship, of shared survival. We finished the contract, he says, his voice steady. But we finish it on our terms. The resolution is not a Hollywood ending. There is no sudden declaration of real love, no escape. Instead, they issue a joint statement, crafted by RM, one that speaks of the pressures of public life, the intensity of their bond, and, crucially, a complete denial of the leaked contract, calling it a vicious forgery. They do not lie about their feelings, they simply frame the truth in a way the public can accept. They maintain the marriage, but they change the narrative of their public life, demanding privacy, pulling back the curtain, refusing to be the government's puppets any longer. The story ends not with a grand concert, but with a quiet, private scene. 3 years later, the contract is officially complete. The 7-year mark is reached. In the official residence, Jimin and Jungkook are alone, sitting in comfortable silence. They have survived. They have maintained the lie. The global narrative is still of a stable, long-lasting celebrity marriage. They look at each other, no longer with the cold distance of forced co-workers, but with the quiet, profound respect of 2 soldiers who survived a brutal, 7-year war together. They are not lovers. They are not just friends. They are something new, partners in fiction, bound by an unspeakable truth. Jungkook raises a glass of water. To freedom, he murmurs. Jimin clinks his glass against Jungkook's. To the 7 years we stole back. The marriage, the contract, the entire fiction, becomes their ultimate secret, their private legacy. They remain married, not by government order, but by their own silent, devastating choice to protect the beautiful lie they created. The world continues to celebrate their love, unaware that the most genuine thing about their union is the extraordinary, heartbreaking sacrifice they made for each other. The contract may have leaked, but the deeper, more painful truth remains safe, locked away in the hearts of 7 men who proved that sometimes, the greatest act of love is the willingness to live a killer fiction. This is the end of this deep dive, fishy fiction fanatics. The curtain closes, but the questions linger. Was their sacrifice worth it? And what would you do if your love became a government order?